Sacha Boisvert's first tally helps the Blackhawks snap a couple of skids.
You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome on in to Locked On Blackhawks. I'm your host, Jack Bushman. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Go and download the Game Time app, create an account, and then use our promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps to get $20 off with your first purchase. On today's episode, a preview of the matchup against Macklin Celebrini and the San Jose Sharks on the West Coast. Kevin Korchinski's strong play since getting recalled from Rockford. But first, the losing streak came to an end over the weekend in Seattle with some help from Sacha Boisvert. Happy Monday, Blackhawks fans. First and foremost, hope all of you out there had a wonderful Easter weekend spent with friends and family. Getting right into it here, though, on today's show, it was very nice to see the Blackhawks' 5-game losing skid come to an end on Saturday night as they took down the Seattle Kraken 4-2, which also snapped a 6-game losing streak at Climate Pledge Arena. The Blackhawks hadn't won in that building since their first appearance all the way back in November of 2021. And then altogether, this was just the third win for this young group dating back to March 14th. So had to feel really good for everyone in that locker room. And the way in which they got it done, I thought was definitely significant, especially considering what transpired the last time that these two teams met all the way back on November 20th. And for those of you who have been longtime viewers or longtime listeners of the show, or at least you've been tuning in regularly throughout the course of this season, then you've probably heard me reference that loss back on November 20th a couple of different times because, in my opinion, it was one that really changed the tides of the entire Blackhawks season because at that point, the Hawks were 19 games into the 25-26 campaign, and they had a 10-5-4 record, and they were also in the midst of a 6-game point streak and had a darn good opportunity to move that to 7 games with a 2-0 lead through 2 periods over the Kraken, only for them to go and allow 3 unanswered goals in the third period. There was, of course, the Connor Bedard unsportsmanlike conduct penalty that I'm sure many of you remember, where Bedard appeared to be hooked or slashed on a breakaway, didn't end up getting the call, barked at the official, and he wound up being the one going to the penalty box, which sure felt like overkill considering it was a tie game in the final moments of the third period when the outcome was right there in the balance because, of course, the Kraken go on to score the game-winning goal on the ensuing power play, and the Blackhawks have never really been the same since as they went on to lose 15 of their next 19 games after that one. And early on, or mid-December, Connor Bedard and Frank Nazar both went down in a matter of 8 days, and the season was over rather quickly for the Blackhawks in terms of postseason hopes. And then oddly enough, they found themselves in that exact same situation on Saturday against Seattle. And it was even down to a T. In the game on November 20th, neither team scored in the opening 20 minutes. That's exactly what happened on Saturday. Then in the second period, the Blackhawks jumped ahead 2-0 with goals from Tyler Bertuzzi and Teuvo Teravainen. That's exactly what happened back on November 20th as well. Even with Teravainen's goal, both of them were scored on the power play. It was very eerie. But this time around, the Blackhawks go and finish the job. The Kraken, they did, make things interesting. They cut the Blackhawks deficit to 1 a couple of different times, but really big of Sacha Boisvert for him to score his first NHL goal in such a clutch moment as after the Kraken cut it to 2-1, the Blackhawks fourth line does an excellent job of coming out with the puck in a board battle. Landon Slaggert moves it over to Kevin Korchinski. He drops the puck down to Boisvert for a one-timer. Nice quick little release there from Boisvert. Beats Philip Grubauer right between the wickets, and his first NHL goal proves to be a game winner for the Blackhawks that helps snap their 5-game losing streak. And nice to see Boisvert get rewarded for going to a dangerous area and being ready. And I've talked about his shot. We haven't really seen it a ton through the first 5 games, and I don't know if that was like the best example of it as he beat Grubauer between his wickets, but I thought the quick release there and not hesitating whatsoever on what to do in that situation. He made a quick decision and he executed, and he came up real clutch to help his team earn their first win in the month of April and also earn their first win in Seattle in nearly 5 years. So good stuff from Sacha Boisvert there in the third period. Also, I thought it was a pretty good job overall by the Blackhawks defense compared to at least kind of how much they've been getting dominated and surged on late in the game against some of their recent opponents. That didn't happen nearly as much, even though the Kraken did score twice in the third. It didn't feel like the Blackhawks were hemmed in or constantly under pressure as much as they have here as of late. So nice to see them be able to hold on to this lead after blowing their 2-0 advantage the last time these two teams met a couple of months ago. And nice to see Sacha Boisvert come up in the clutch to score his first NHL tally. I don't think it's been like the most standout-ish first 5 games for Sacha Boisvert, but I also do think his role as the fourth line center has something to do with that, considering he's been playing with, Teuvo Teravainen, who's been ice cold until what he did on Saturday. Landon Slaggert, I believe, is also in the midst of a 16-game point drought, but I feel like Boisvert has not been a hindrance or really made any rookie mistakes in these first 5 games. And altogether, he's only been on the ice for 2 goals against. Both of those came in his first 2 contests in which the Blackhawks got blown out by the Flyers and the New York Rangers. Hasn't been on the ice for a goal against in each of his last 3 games. He's also done decent at the faceoff dot for getting thrown right into the fire against grown men, winning 46.4% of his draws. Obviously isn't having the greatest opportunity or the largest amount of ice time down there on the fourth line, but I feel like altogether for him, getting his feet wet, he's been all right thus far. And nice of him to come up clutch with his first NHL tally that ends up being a game winner. Would like to see him maybe be a little bit more physical, as the Blackhawks are still regularly losing in the hits department or just getting out-muscled by their opponent. I would like to see Boisvert use that side of his game a little bit more. I know he's not someone who consistently runs over opponents, but would still like to see him throw his weight around a little bit more. But I'm sure he's probably just trying to focus on being in the right spots and not do any damage to his team out there on the ice. But good first 5 games overall by Sacha Boisvert, and love to see him come up clutch and help those guys in the locker room pick up just their 3rd win here in, I believe, the last 3 weeks. Helps his team exercise some of the past demons that they had earlier on in the year against the Seattle Kraken on Saturday, and snaps a couple of losing streaks in the process. That takes care of my thoughts on Sacha Boisvert's game winner in the Blackhawks 4-2 win over the Kraken on Saturday. Coming up in just a moment here, also want to discuss an impressive first 4 games back up in the NHL for defenseman Kevin Korchinski. But first, got to talk a little bit more about today's sponsor here on Locked On Blackhawks, which is Game Time. There's nothing like being in an NBA arena. The crowd, the energy, the atmosphere. Getting tickets, though, that part hasn't always been so simple. But that's why Game Time has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast and without the hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs, with the fans. And what I personally love is being able to see the view from my seat before buying, so I know exactly what to expect before I arrive and also before I make that purchase. Go and take the guesswork out of buying your NBA tickets right now with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and then use our promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps to get $20 off on your first purchase. Again, that's code LOCKEDON in all caps to get $20 off. Go and download the Game Time app today, and remember, it's gametime.co, not .com. Don't forget to check out the Locked On Blackhawks Everydayer Club to get ad-free audio, access to our group chat on Discord with me and other listeners of this show, and much more. And you can easily find the link to join the Locked On Blackhawks Everydayer Club down in the description, along with the time codes. Again, if there is something specifically that you want to watch or listen to on a single episode, you can easily jump to that point in the show because I've time coded everything down in the descriptions. Segment 2 here on today's show, though, getting the primary assist on Sacha Boisvert's game-winning goal on Saturday. Goal number 1 in the career of Sacha Boisvert was Kevin Korchinski with a sweet first-round pick to first-round pick connection. And overall, I thought it was another pretty effective performance from Korchinski, and that's been the case in each of his first 4 games now back up with the Blackhawks. And I talked a couple of days ago, I believe it was on Friday, the last show that I did, about how I was just really excited to see Korchinski get an opportunity in a non-emergency role, because that's really been the only time we've seen him since getting rushed to the NHL back in 2023, 2024. Last season, I think he did get like a 9 or a 10 game stint, but nothing too prolonged that would allow for him to get settled in, allow him to establish some strong chemistry with some teammates, and just allow him to feel comfortable and like he belongs and like he's being given a real opportunity. And surprise, surprise, Korchinski's played well in this spot thus far. And as someone who's been begging for the Blackhawks to give him a larger opportunity, it's a little frustrating, but also you like to see Korchinski, take advantage of this opportunity. But it's like, we could have done this earlier. We didn't have to limit Korchinski's opportunities this season to only the conclusion of the regular season after the Blackhawks have basically been eliminated from playoff contention. But, on Saturday, Korchinski led the Blackhawks with a 72.44 expected goals for percentage at even strength. And in his first 4 games back, he has a 52.81 expected goals for percentage and hasn't been on the ice for a single opposing goal in those 4 games. Now, he has played a minor role down on the third pairing with Ethan Del Mastro, and they've definitely played the lesser minutes compared to the top 2 pairings, but I still feel like Korchinski, between he and Del Mastro, in my opinion, he's definitely been the better one. I feel like Del Mastro has still been kind of fighting the puck in the defensive zone, but Korchinski, I feel like, has done a really good job at moving the puck effectively, staying out of harm's way, and really not doing any damage to his team with errant passes or poor decisions in the defensive zone. And that's really kind of been the knock on Korchinski when he has played in the NHL these last couple of years, or even going back to his rookie year, is that he was a hindrance on his team in the defensive zone, and it just led to him not really being trusted upon by the coaching staff. I feel like with the way Korchinski has improved defensively, at least in this 4-game stint, which, yes, I do understand is a small sample size, but it is clear that Korchinski has made strides over these last couple of years as he's gotten older. He's gained more experience. He's gained some weight, which he's definitely going to have to continue to do in order to have success in the defensive zone. But I feel like he's also reading plays smarter and understanding how to better use his best asset, which is his skating ability to get himself out of damage. And when he can't do that, he's making smart first passes in the defensive zone that helps lead to effective clears for his team, And he's just not committing the turnovers or the mental errors, especially as consistently as he has in the past here in these last 4 contests. So I've been really pleased with what I've seen from Korchinski. I mentioned that a couple of days ago that I was really liking what I had seen. And then for him to have probably his best performance up in the NHL with the Blackhawks since his rookie season on Saturday really kind of put a bow on it. And again, is very, very satisfying to see, especially considering the amount of people who have kind of already cast Korchinski to the side, even though he's only 21 years old. And I understand he doesn't, shine or have the luster that he was once used to as a former 7th overall selection, but I still feel like the vast majority of this fan base has punted on Korchinski way too quickly. And I have some buddies who text me all the time saying Kevin Korchinski is a bust. And well, listen, that still could definitely be true. I'm not ruling out that Korchinski could be a bust. I don't think he's going to have the upside that the Blackhawks envisioned him having when they drafted him 7th overall back in 2022. But I do still definitely feel like he has the abilities and is way too young to make a harsh judgment that he's for sure not going to be a puzzle piece here in this Blackhawks rebuild when, again, we just haven't really seen him in a legitimate NHL opportunity since the Blackhawks rushed him into the NHL as a 19-year-old when he was the youngest defenseman in the entire league. I feel like this is really our first true look at Korchinski. It really is the first true look at Korchinski back up in the NHL. And so far, 2 thumbs up for how he's fared in these last 4 appearances. I do wonder if the Blackhawks are going to consider giving him a little bit larger of an opportunity in these last 5 contests, which obviously isn't the easiest thing to do when you have Alex Vlasic and Wyatt Kaiser on the left-hand side, and they're important to what the Blackhawks are building here, obviously, and they have been sound as young players for the Blackhawks these last couple of seasons, Kaiser especially this year. So giving Korchinski more of an opportunity does somewhat require those guys seeing lesser minutes, but it's like, for the final 5 games of the year, yes, I know on the bench and in that locker room, they want to win every period. They want to win every single game. But the reality of the situation that we're in is you want to also see what your young players have to offer. And that's why, in a similar vein, I do wonder if for a game or two, or even just for like a period or some shifts, we see Sacha Boisvert potentially up on the second or the third line just to see how he looks in that situation now that he's gotten a couple of games under his belt. I do wonder if the same thing could be happening for Korchinski now that he's proven to be an effective player back up in his first 4 games here. I do wonder if, and I'm not asking for him to play like 20 minutes or something, but give him, 15, 16, 17 minutes a game and see if he's still able to find the same level of success. I know the Blackhawks have been tinkering with a 5-forward power play unit, and that's the stuff I like to see at this point in the season. You might as well give that an opportunity, but I would also like to see Kevin Korchinski get a look there, considering that's kind of where we envisioned him to be when we drafted him. I know now with the arrivals of Artem Levshunov and Sam Rinzel, they're clearly getting opportunities to quarterback the power play units ahead of Korchinski, but you might as well see what he has to offer, especially with Levshunov being out of the lineup right now. So those are the things that I'd like to see. Do I know if it's a realistic ask? I don't know. And I wouldn't be too upset if the Blackhawks didn't give those situations to Korchinski just because of the reasons that I just outlined. But it is something to potentially keep in mind, especially if he goes and has another strong performance here tonight against the San Jose Sharks, which I'm going to be previewing here coming up in just a moment. But there are my thoughts on Kevin Korchinski's nice little run since he's been recalled from Rockford, which has me very pleased. But coming up in just a moment, yes, I'll be talking about Connor Bedard and Macklin Celebrini meeting up for the second of 3 meetings here tonight in the season series. Just want to say thank you to everyone for making Locked On Blackhawks your very first listen here to start off your day. Segment 3, before I close out today's episode, the Blackhawks play their final road game of the 25-26 regular season later this evening, coming against Macklin Celebrini and the San Jose Sharks. Bedard versus Celebrini for the second time this year. And the last one resulted in a fun 6-3 win for the Hawks at the United Center back on February 2nd. Ryan Donato and Ilya Mikheyev, both with 4-point outings in that one. Donato with 2 goals and 2 assists. Mikheyev with 1 goal and 3 assists. Bedard also found the back of the net. So did Sam Rinzel. Connor Murphy, I believe it was his last goal as a member of the Blackhawks. Definitely his last one at the United Center with Chicago. And then on the losing side, Macklin Celebrini did still have an impressive 2-point performance, scoring a goal and adding an assist in a losing effort for the Sharks. While the Blackhawks obviously have already been eliminated from Stanley Cup playoff contention for the sixth consecutive year, before the weekend, I discussed whether the Blackhawks could put an end to that playoff drought in 2026-2027. Make sure to go and check out Friday's episode if you haven't done so already for more on that. But for San Jose, this is a real meaningful game for them here this evening. And it's meaningful for the Blackhawks every time they'll be taking on Celebrini and the Sharks for a long, long time, as these teams could potentially be battling it out at the top of the Western Conference for years to come if their rebuilds go as successfully as they hope. But for the Sharks, right there in the midst of the playoff battle in the Western Conference and coming off a tough 6-3 loss to the Nashville Predators, the team currently in that second and final wild card spot out west. They lost 6-3 on Saturday to Nashville, fell behind 3-0 early, rallied to tie the score 3-3, evened it up early on in the third period, only for Nashville to respond with 3 unanswered goals of their own to take that one 6-3. But that now has the Sharks 2 points back of the Preds for that second wild card position, and the Los Angeles Kings are also 2 points ahead of them. But both Los Angeles and Nashville have played one more game than the Sharks have. While the Sharks own the tiebreaker over Los Angeles, they have a handful more regulation wins than they do, but they have 2 fewer regulation wins than the Nashville Predators do, which is the ultimate tiebreaker. So every game from here on out, not only for the Sharks, but for the Preds and for the Kings as well, for the St. Louis Blues, who are going on quite a run here, similar similarly to 2019, trying to sneak their way into the Stanley Cup playoffs. But every game for all of those teams that I just mentioned from here on out feels like a must win, especially in regulation. So would be real fun for the Blackhawks to go in that building, which I'm sure is probably going to have a pretty good atmosphere to it tonight as the Sharks are playing their most meaningful hockey in quite some time, a position I really do believe the Blackhawks can be in this time next year and sure hope to find themselves in playing meaningful hockey as the weather starts to get better once again. But that's the situation for the Sharks. And if the Blackhawks can go in there and play spoiler, especially considering the way that these two fan bases have kind of pitted themselves against one another with, I don't know why there's Bedard and Celebrini hatred back and forth when they were, number one overall selections in two different NHL drafts. They're two completely different players. I've been outspoken my opinion on this. You're allowed to root for Connor Bedard and Macklin Celebrini. You're allowed to think both players are pretty good, but obviously Macklin has the leg up over Connor right now with 106 points as a 19-year-old, 40 goals, trying to lead the Sharks back into the postseason, fourth in the NHL in points. It's been an incredible year from Celebrini, and Bedard found himself right in that same conversation up until he suffered that injury in early December, just has not been able to rack up points at the same clip that he did in the first, 30 contests of the season. And I do think there are multiple reasons for that, considering the Blackhawks drop off, trading some veterans, Andre Burakovsky being an absolute ghost for the last two months, despite still majority of the time being stapled along with Bedard on that top line. I think there's a lot of factors that go into it, but definitely Celebrini and what he's doing for the Sharks, I feel like has probably only increased the fuel to the fire in terms of the Blackhawks and Sharks quote unquote rivalry. So it would be awesome to see the Blackhawks go and take them down, this time in their own building, and kind of give them a little kick in between the midsection and hurt those playoff hopes a little bit more, with them only having, what do they have? They have 7 games left, I believe, in their regular season. But this is one the Sharks really need for a couple of different reasons. They also got Edmonton, Anaheim, and Nashville once again coming up on their schedule. All of those games are going to be like do or die types of feelings around them. So for San Jose going up against, one of the worst teams in the NHL in the Blackhawks, this is one they're going to really want. And the Blackhawks are going to try to ride that momentum that they got from Saturday and go and get a win in their final road contest of the regular season. As far as the Blackhawks lineup here tonight, I actually waited until after the morning skate to record today's episode because I know they're on the road. We were possibly going to get an update from Blashill on Andrew Mangiapane, who he said during the road trip had a chance to play, didn't wind up suiting up on Saturday in Seattle despite participating in the morning skate. And then the Blackhawks, didn't go through line rushes at their morning skate. So that's real great. I do know that Spencer Knight is set to make his 52nd start of the season officially, which I knew was going to be the case once Arvid Soderblom got the start on Saturday in Seattle. And I think that was kind of done to set up Spencer Knight to get the start here in this game against San Jose, which I do feel like the Blackhawks organization and Jeff Blashill and the coaching staff probably understand it holds some significance, this game here tonight, for a couple of different reasons. But while the Blackhawks did not go through line rushes at their morning skate, we're not 100% sure what the lineup is going to look like, even though they're coming off of a win, likely going to be running it back. But there is going to be one change, it sounds like, even though Blashill didn't officially confirm it, as you know how he is, he's a little wishy-washy in his interviews, but he did say that Andrew Mangiapane is available to return to the Blackhawks tonight. He's missed the last 9 games due to an undisclosed injury, and Andre Burakovsky, something that's probably going to put a smile on a lot of your faces. It looks like Andre Burakovsky is going to be the one coming out of the Blackhawks lineup for Mangiapane. It is not officially confirmed. Blashill would not confirm his lineup, but it looks like finally, Andre Burakovsky is going to have some repercussions for his horrendous play for far too long, with 1 goal and 2 assists for 3 points since Connor Bedard has returned from his injury, which happened in early January. Finally, it looks like it's going to happen. And finally, it looks like Blashill has reached a boiling point with Burakovsky's play. I think he only received 6 shifts in the final 2 periods on Saturday in Seattle, like, he's recognizing how bad that he's been, and he's given him all the opportunities in the world to break out of this drought, but he is just playing such bad hockey right now, and he's deserving of this healthy scratching that looks like it's going to be coming tonight. And I've talked about how, with the way that Andrew Mangiapane plays, even though he's not the biggest body, he doesn't provide a lot of physicality. Since he's joined the Blackhawks when he was healthy, he's been a little bit of a pest. He's been mixing up in the net front areas. He's been getting involved in skirmishes, and the Blackhawks need that right now. And just with how the forward group looks from a numbers perspective, it was either going to be Andre Burakovsky or Landon Slaggert drawing out of the lineup when Mangiapane returns. And Slaggert, even though he is in the midst of a 16-game point drought, he continues to not be able to bury primetime scoring chances. He is an effective skater down there on the fourth line and does some good work defensively and on the penalty kill, and feels like he's starting to grow into that role a little bit more. And I've liked what I've seen from Slaggert despite the scoring drought over the last couple of months. I feel like he's just much more natural in that fourth line role along with Sacha Boisvert. And I think Andrew Mangiapane would complement that trio a lot better than Andre Burakovsky would. So we'll see if Burakovsky does wind up finally getting healthy scratched here tonight. All signs are pointing in that direction, and definitely is justified with how horrendous he's been these last couple of months. We'll see if it winds up being a consistent thing for Burakovsky down the stretch here of the regular season, if he winds up being an outsider in the Blackhawks lineup more times than not over their final 5 games. But that's going to take care of today's episode of Locked On Blackhawks. As always, thank you all again for joining me on the show. Make sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Really getting close to my goal of 3,000 subscribers. And also make sure you go and follow Locked On Blackhawks for free wherever you may be listening to your podcast. That way you can get the latest episodes as soon as they're available. If you want to check me out on social media, you can find me basically anywhere at Jack Bushman 2. My Strictly Blackhawks account on X can be found at Talkin' Hockey. Give that a follow so you don't miss any of the latest Blackhawks news and updates. Until tomorrow's episode, everyone, go Hawks. Let's go and make it 2 in a row. Let's go and play spoiler out in San Jose. And I'll see you on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.